Should I, 35M, divorce abusive and delusional wife, 35F, or try counseling? I, 35M, have been married to my wife, 35F, for 11 years. We have 3 children, 10M, 6F, and 4M. We met in college and were long distance for a few years of graduate school before getting married. After marriage my wife suddenly turned abusive and our relationship has not been happy. I am trying to decide whether there is any point trying marriage counseling given her history of abuse, manipulation, and delusions. My wife is functional at work but has issues with her personal life. I have always done all the cooking, which I enjoy, most of the cleaning, home repairs, taxes, kids' lunches, bedtime, and after we both finished graduate school when our oldest son was 3 I have earned 75% of our income while my wife has worked part-time. For the first few years we split childcare evenly, but in the last few years she has needed me to take on more and more. By the time the pandemic came we got to a point where I homeschooled all 3 kids at once. It was easier than juggling 3 kids worth of Zoom school and a lot more fun. During the day, played with them after school, while cooking dinner, and worked at night from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. The kids and I would not see my wife at almost days until 7 p.m., when we would call her down for dinner. Although it was exhausting, this was a wonderful time. The kids and I went on long walks, read in Hebrew and English, repaired things around the house, did yoga, painted, and the only screen time we used was to practice our opera choruses. With the extra time I finally got around to teaching our 2 oldest kids to swim, which was hard both because our older son is on the spectrum and has significant issue with motor planning and because I needed to keep our younger son on a float while giving the older 2 their lessons. For the most part my wife has non-bizarre persecutory delusions. She often has a new best friend for several months then ends it because she thinks the friend is making faces at her. She also thought this about my sister for several years. She thought my boss, who is also a good friend and neighbor, was trying to have an affair with her even though they have never been alone together because she thought he glanced toward her hands at a barbecue. She decides that people are alcoholic because they talk about wine and bulimic because they talk about food. She once bent down to tie her shoes near an acquaintance and became convinced that he thought she was propositioning him and began spreading rumors. She thought that some other parents thought I am a pedophile because I coached a swim team as a teenager. A few years ago she talked frequently about some emails she believed local rabbis had sent to every Jewish man in our area warning to stay away from her because she is a home wrecker. These are all worrisome on their own, but the big problem is that my wife accuses me of gaslighting when I don't agree with her, and she hates me for it. In the last few years my wife has also come to believe that I covertly insult her through my interactions with the kids. For example, when they ask me about hazardous materials she thinks I am calling her toxic. When they ask me about Star Wars characters she thinks I am implying that she is on the dark side of the Force. She forbade me from using the word "we" to refer to myself and the kids, as in, we found a lot of mulberries at the park, because she thinks I am deliberately excluding her. Likewise with the word "all right, mistake," because it's a message that it was a mistake to marry her, dead end, and others. Once I suggested that she secretly record me reading to the kids in her presence and away from her to compare, and she said this would not prove anything because I am so pathological that I wage a perpetual campaign of hidden insults even when she is not around. The worst part of this is that my wife retaliates by glaring at me, contradicting me just for the heck of it, and making sarcastic remarks. My wife also has some tendency toward grandiose delusions. A lot of her persecutory beliefs center around the idea that she is younger and prettier than other moms and therefore other women are jealous of her. She has told me before that she has an empathic superpower, for seeing things that other people can't. And she likes to shut down arguments by claiming that she has never once in her life lied or knowingly acted wrongly. The worst delusion, though, centers around my mother. They got along well before our wedding and then suddenly my wife decided that my mother hates her and makes faces and sarcastic remarks. Before I understand that she was mentally ill I exhausted myself trying to address the accusations. My wife said that the wedding pictures showed my mother making faces, so I went through every picture from every guest. They all showed my mother smiling. Ditto for every video. My wife said my brother would surely confirm, and when he didn't she said he was emotionally stupid, like me. She said my sister would confirm, and when she didn't she said my sister was emotionally crippled, also like me. She then made up stories about my favorite cousin confiding to her about 30 years of persecution from my mother. My cousin was appalled but fortunately it brought her and my mother closer together. We would be at a table with 10 people, not all related to me, and my wife would claim that my mother insulted her 50 times without anyone else knowing because she is just that much of an evil genius. The sad thing is that for years I didn't tell anyone what was going on, and my mother continued to like my wife for a while. I mean, she would always make a point to watch the kids so we could have time together. She would always tell me to listen to my wife, she spoke well of her to everyone, etc. My wife would call me a horrible husband for choosing my mother's side. I tried to tell her that I wasn't choosing sides because I didn't think the fight existed, to no avail. After a few years my wife started to, from her point of view, fight back and basically began persecuting my mother sadistically. Like, for example, she will get a couple of feet away from my mother and just stare at her for 10 minutes, start talking loudly on the phone when the kids are playing with my mother, make sarcastic comments about my mother being an old dragon, etc. The kids are really bothered by this because they love my parents, despite the fact that they are not allowed in our house and therefore don't see the kids as much as they would like. A few years ago my wife spent 8 months in therapy and even took a low-dose antipsychotic, but she claimed it was just for anxiety. I begged her to bring up the delusions with her therapist but don't think she did. At the end of 8 months she claimed that her therapist kicked her out of therapy for being too mentally healthy, and since then has claimed that she is extremely healthy and that I am insane. Apart from the delusions, my wife also has run-of-the-mill abusive tendencies. Earlier in our marriage she used to snap at me constantly and claim that I just didn't know what normal arguments were like because my parents' marriage is too good. She would call me at work every hour some days to pick fights that I didn't understand at all. She would yell at me for hours over putting soup on a trivet that wasn't thick enough and things like that. One time when I was preparing dinner while she was yelling at me, I cut my finger on a paring knife and bled, cleaned the wound, and applied a gauze dressing all without her noticing because she was too busy dressing me down. For some reason that all stopped a few years into our marriage but was replaced by other things. I often feel manipulated. My wife has often alternated putting me on a pedestal. I don't deserve you. My friend said you were the nicest guy in our college, etc. With extreme hate. You are the most pathological liar I have ever met. You are criminally neglecting the children for letting them outside with dirty faces. My friend said not to marry you. She likes to use hearsay that I think is completely made up. She used to tell me I was autistic, but then after giving up on that decided I was a master manipulator who had merely let her think that. She has tried to make me feel like an abuser for basic requests such as calling me by my name. She used to invent unwanted nicknames, like, butthead, for me, and claim she just couldn't help it. Or asking her not to leave crumbs on my side of the bed. She likes to remind me how low maintenance she is and how no one else would marry me. She used to make fun of my face. I have always taken very good care of her sexual needs, after which she usually falls asleep or, if I am lucky, tells me to get it over with quickly. To be clear, I am not handsome but I am not repulsive. My face is dead average but I have all my hair and I'm in great shape. I am also very concerned about her treatment of the children. She has dangerous golden child tendencies with our daughter. For example, when our younger son was born, my wife unweaned our daughter and began nursing him before our infant son despite my begging not to malnourish him. When my wife does talk during dinner, she starts a conversation with our daughter and ignores the boys. She lets our daughter interrupt bedtime and other family rituals and sometimes thinks that our daughter shouldn't be disciplined at all. Fortunately, our daughter doesn't respect my wife and prefers me, since I'm the only parent who gives her attention. But I worry what will happen if she gets more energy and warps our daughter. The boys are happy but they have no meaningful relationship with their mother. 6 months ago I told my wife I was considering divorce due to her delusions and that I would like marriage counseling, which she refused. She promised to make things better for me, which she did for about 3 weeks. That is, for 3 weeks I was still raising the kids by myself, but she didn't insult me in front of the kids. That collapsed pretty quickly. My family and therapist, I have been seeing for a few months just to figure out what to do. I am otherwise mentally healthy, are getting increasingly adamant that for myself and the kids I have to divorce my wife. If things continue like this, I feel I will die young just from the chest tightness and racing pulse I experience when my wife is near. I have a lawyer ready to go. Because my wife accidentally opened credit cards from store purchases and forgot to pay them, she has destroyed her credit but not mine. I would most likely buy her out of the house and get at least half custody of the kids. But the prospect of not getting more custody terrifies me. I have been the only stable parent in my kids' lives and I am afraid to abandon them half the time. On the other hand, my parents would move to be nearby and my kids would then have 3 grown-ups who love them, and they would have a less exhausted and browbeaten version of me. The biggest thing holding me back is the possibility, which my therapist and family call magical thinking, that with marriage counseling my wife might become good enough to have a mediocre marriage. Like, maybe she would still be delusional and not really care about the kids and not let my parents into our home, but she could realize that I am not insulting her every minute and so would stop demeaning me in front of the children. The thing is, I am afraid to go into marriage counseling with someone who doesn't really inhabit reality and has never shown any regard for the truth, especially because I have always been vulnerable to her manipulations. I should note that my wife started a new, less stressful job a few months ago and is participating a bit more in life. She has joined the kids and me for a few weekend outings and is cooking once a week. The delusions are continuing in full force, though, and she still doesn't seem to be able to love the boys. It's not much, but the fact that there is some progress is feeding my fantasy, magical thinking. Finally, while I truly loved my wife for several years into the marriage, the abuse eventually wore me down. I don't hate her and in fact I'm kind of disturbed at my inability to feel anger, but I feel a lot of fear. I have tried to reignite the companionship in our marriage in all sorts of ways, but she has never seemed very interested. Most recently I suggested we read a book together like we did when we were dating, but she simply couldn't be bothered to read the book we chose even when we had date nights to do so. So there is no friendship or anything like that left, and I don't think my wife is interested in working to rebuild that. This sounds like it's well beyond just marriage counseling. Your wife needs psychological help. Her delusions sound quite serious, and the mood swings are worrisome. I would try to get a professional to evaluate her ASAP, as her delusions could get worse and possibly put you and the kids in danger. I am so sorry for you and your kids. I can't imagine how hard of a situation you're in. This is beyond our pay grade. You need a lawyer for the divorce, a therapist for the kids, and a psychologist for your STBXW. Divorce. Marriage counseling could give you a mediocre marriage. Wow. Lucky you. You've had 11 years of absolute shit. Do not waste any more time on this. You are harming your children by fantasizing that a severely mentally ill person with paranoid delusions will what? Snap out of it? Take the advice of everyone you know and cut this off. My guy. Please. Divorce your wife. It's self-care, and more importantly, caring for your children. The best thing would be to also call all the other lawyers in the area, even though you already have a lawyer. So she can't get a better lawyer than you and she will waste time finding a lawyer while your lawyers can build their case against her. Get as much documentation as you can of her being an unfit mother, and go for full custody right off the bat. This sounds really harsh, but it's the name of the game. Your wife is mentally ill, as in case suitable for treatment. Counseling isn't going to fix this. You'll have to get her to agree to get treatment. This is going to be a long, hard, nasty road to travel. Up to you if you decide to walk it with her. This is way beyond marriage counseling. She's mentally ill. I would be very concerned keeping your children in that kind of environment. Even if she isn't physically harming them, they are going to be a mess mentally when they get older. Divorce. Get custody of the kids. Make a list of what all she has said and did. Get proof if possible. She is unfit to have custody of your kids. Ask for supervised visitation at least until she gets help and on meds that work. Talk to a lawyer. Found out what my wife did a decade ago, don't know how to take it now. My wife and I got together in August 2011. She wanted to be exclusive and only date each other, which I was fine with because I really liked her. The first week of December 2011 went like this: Friday met her parents, Saturday went away with 2 of her friends and her cousin, Sunday had dinner with her uncle, Monday wouldn't reply to my messages all day. That night she sent a message to me breaking up with me. It's not you, it's me kinda shit. I was gutted. 2 months later she messaged me saying it was a mistake and if we could try again. And she just wasn't ready for a serious relationship. We got back together, got married in 2015, have been happy ever since. Have also got 2 kids. In 2016 I ran into one of the friends we went away with. This person shortly left their friendship group after we broke up. And we were discussing the last time we saw each other. This guy, not knowing I married my wife, said it was wrong how my wife broke up with me. He told me that another friend of hers told her that she liked him the day we got back from our trip and that's why she broke up with me. I was gutted and furious. If I had have known that, I would have never gotten back with her. I needed more information, so I went snooping. I went through her deleted messages on Facebook and found their chat. This is how it briefly went. Him, hey, I like you. Her, I think I like you. To him, what about your boyfriend? Her, I'll sort it out and then we can give it a try. 3 days later. Him, I think we should just be friends. I think we are better that way. Her, I agree. After reading the entire message, I could tell that nothing physical had happened between the two. From the sounds of it, they didn't even kiss. While I was in her chat archive, it was clear that she has slept with a lot more people than she told me she did. To be honest, I don't really care about that aspect of it, as we were broken up and honestly I was doing the same. I'm more upset because she left me for another guy, fucked around with a bunch more after him and then came back. I feel like I wasn't good enough at the time and she has just settled for me. I have never brought this up to her. I don't want to because she will flat out deny it. I know her and then she will turn it back on me with things like, why are you bringing up the past? It was a decade ago. Since I found out, I go through periods where I think about it every day and it really gets me down. The last month I have thought about it every day, multiple times a day, and it's really affecting me. We have a really good life together, but it was all built on a lie, which if she had been honest with me from the start, I would have had all the information whether or not I wanted to pursue a future with her. Which I wouldn't have. I'm not someone's second option. Any advice? Edit. If I were to talk to her about it, she would deny it. I permanently deleted the messages from him because I kept reading them every couple of months. I get she didn't cheat. But she left me for someone else then came back. I feel like I was robbed of the right to make an informed decision on whether I wanted to restart a relationship with her. There is no doubt in my mind that since we got back together she has ever cheated on me. Or wanted someone else. Edit. Being new to Reddit, I had no idea that this group was full of women. Thank you to everyone who private messaged me informing that I would get biased answers. While I'm sure a lot of the women who have taken shots at me are very happy at home with their cats. I honestly believe that in a situation like mine, honesty is the best policy. At the end of the day, whichever way you look at it, whether I was lied to or information was withheld from me, that one lie has dictated the last 10 years of my life. Which if I had have learnt the truth sooner, it wouldn't have had. And yes, I agree with all of you lovely ladies, going to speak to someone might help. I guarantee that if a female had have written this post, the responses would have been incredibly different. Too long did not read. Wife left me for another guy. Am I the only one who hears Ross screaming, we were on a break? I'm not trying to be rude, but this sounds like a bunch of would have, could have, should haves to me. At the end of the day, she chose you. None of the other guys were good enough to keep her interest. You can either choose to look at from that angles or sit around and sulk and feel like you weren't her first option. You should have talked to her about it instead of snooping, or at least made the effort if you think she would flat out deny it. Frankly, I understand why this would bother you, because you feel like she settled for you. The problem is, I think maybe at the moment you thought she was the one. She may not have felt the same, so it took being away from you to realize you were the one probably. From the comments it looks like this is going to eat you inside if you don't address it. Either talk to her or figure out a way to get past this. You have to decide whether this is a deal breaker for you. If you can't let any of this go and resent her with a huge grudge, staying in the relationship would be poison for you and her and the kids. If you feel like you want to stay and can move past this, then you'll want to fess up and tell her everything, then do individual or couples therapy, or both. Personally, if I found any of this out, I'd see how many years later, the relationship would be over. I could never look at them the same and would feel like a second choice. Yet it is up to you to decide if you can move past this or want it to work, and your choice alone. She can deny till the cows come home, or fess up. If she does the former, I'd be even more inclined to leave the relationship. This man just jumped into the misogyny pool with his edits. I'm a male, by the way. I am going to be blunt, this is the wrong time to be asking. Remember that whatever her reasons were for breaking up, you bought and paid for those reasons when you decided to take her back, and most of all when you proposed. Forgive her or else don't, either way it's too late to be worried about. That ship sailed when you walked down the aisle. If those reasons were important to you, then there is a good time to ask tough questions about just why did she break up, and that was when she said she wanted to get back together. Second best time is before you bought a ring and moved in together. So what happens if she finds another guy she wants to have sex again in the future? Will she ask for a separation for a few months and have sex with the guy and then get back to you after she's done with him? People break up for stupid reasons and sometimes get back together for good ones. She's human, she made a bad judgment call. It was 10 years ago, man. Don't let social media and its never-vanishing history ruin the good thing you have now. Stop looking for a reason to be upset and look at how things are for you in the present. Just let it go. Why can't I, 24F, form friendships with women? Update. I have put a general comment up, please read. Thank you all for reaching out, you are all amazing. I've been a tomboy growing up, and always had mostly male friends. But I've always wanted female friends, but it seems like none of them like me because I have a hard time connecting. I find this so sad to think about because I keep seeing all these big groups of girlfriends and I never had that. What can I do to change this? I want to go out on a girls' night and have drinks or just hang out. I feel like I've had enough hanging out with guys because we just don't share the same interests anymore. Even the small gossiping and shopping I see other girls do makes me feel like I missed out on that. I only have one girlfriend but we rarely hang out and it always feels like she's closer to any other friend of hers. She will post stories with them, comment on their photos, wish them happy birthday publicly on social media. But I wouldn't know how she's with them when they hang out and if she actually just enjoys their company more than mine. Any advice? P.S. Ironically enough, I posted this on Ask Women Advice and got downvoted. It was a kick to my confidence. Update comment. Hi all. I want to take the time and thank each and every one of you who took the time to comment and reach out. I appreciate every single one of you. You've put a lot of things into perspective. When I said about shopping and gossiping, I didn't even think I was stereotyping women, but I now understand how it was a mistake to label women's friendship as just that. Of course I know there's much more than that, and not only that. Whatever female friendship entails, I am always seeking deeper connections that I feel like I have missed out on growing up. Even though I have great friendships with a lot of guys, they were mostly to have fun and to hang out, without ever actually discussing about any emotional matters, just laid-back friendships. I have come to the conclusion I might just have to go see a therapist and sort this out, as this seems it's a lot deeper than I thought it was. Maybe I have a hard time connecting with people in general. Thanks again for putting everything in perspective. Update mini comment. I have since then gotten upvoted on the other post. You should have seen my face, I had the ugliest laugh. You are all angels, but that wasn't necessary. Thank you though, heart. The shopping and gossiping, that sentence made some noise in my brain. Are you sure that, maybe non-willingly, you're not giving the impression to other women that you look at them over the shoulder? If this is the case, and you may be attacked, whatever they represent for you, and deeper connections didn't happen because of this. We, regardless of gender, don't like people who consider them less. I wouldn't be friends with a woman who seems to consider men better, instead of surrounding herself with the people she likes regardless of gender. I'm 26F, sort of the same way. I actually have plenty of friendships with women, but I've been told I can come across as aloof during first impressions. I'm not naturally bubbly or smiley, which a lot of people expect of young women. But I never have problems connecting if we get past that first stage. Honestly, what helped me the most was practicing putting people at ease. Making sure I smile when I am introduced, give compliments, ask questions. Maybe even personality mirror a little bit. Sometimes I wish that weren't necessary, but at this point I've learned people feel more comfortable if they feel liked and welcome. Maybe you're trying to connect to the wrong types of people. You said you're a tomboy, so find girls like you. Join a club you're interested in. Make a club. Talk to girls dressed like you, and just be yourself. I would second the suggestion to join some clubs. Do you like run, boulder, climb, bike, etc.? How's the age range at your job? My second suggestion, know that it will take some time. It took me a couple of years to move into closer friendships in a hobby group. Be okay with letting things develop organically. Much like in dating, being overly clingy early on can be a big turn-off. Pinning, because I also need advice on this. A few years ago I made some friends that are girls, and I have one close friend from that group, but it was so difficult and I always seem to say the wrong things. I also discovered that I am attracted to women, so that adds an extra layer to it. I just want group of platonic female friends to go like on a girls' night or something, lol. I think the reason you got downvoted is because you seem to buy into some negative one-dimensional stereotypes about women. I've always had a lot of girlfriends and I can assure you that they are all intelligent, funny, and kind in their own way. Have you attempted to meet people? Maybe join a sport or take up a class for a hobby you enjoy? The cool thing about friendship is that two people can have different personalities but still enjoy others' company. Maybe start with your interests. Think of something you really enjoy, like an activity, and find other people who are interested in that activity. It would probably be a great place to start a friendship. Well, the question that should be asked is what making you not connected with us? You're a female, that's impossible. You're probably attracting the wrong type of people because with difference doesn't affect relationships. I have friends that are lesbians, tomboys and transgender. Also, I don't take Reddit voting system seriously. They will downvote anything that doesn't fit their narrative, etc., etc. I say seek for people who vibe with you in general. Like whatever interest you have, seek for one with the similar interest. Plus try to socialize more. I've gained more female friends by talking with girls that I feel comfortable to talk to with. I avoid men because the guys in Florida suck ass. Boyfriend, 24M, read my 22F journal because he thought it would be helpful. For a bit of background, I began writing a journal 2 or 3 years ago as I was advised by my therapist. I struggle with bipolar disorder and it has become a good outlet for me to vent and express how I feel during depressive episodes. I've made it clear to my boyfriend that it is completely personal and off limits to him and anyone else. I have just come off the back of a particularly bad depressive episode, and he was supportive of me throughout it, which does help massively. My mental well-being improved a lot over the last week, and I consider the episode over. This morning, boyfriend told me that he had read my journal the night before while I was asleep. I reacted to this quite angrily and asked him why he had done it, and he said that it was because he wanted to properly understand what was going through my mind and thought that it would be helpful for any future episodes. He told me that he thought I was always vague about how I felt and that he didn't think he could do much to help without knowing what I was writing in there. I don't know how to react. I feel like I've had my privacy completely infringed upon. Much of the journal's contents are pure, unfiltered thoughts that I have when I'm feeling very low, and I even find it a bit hard to go back and read later. The idea of someone else reading it is completely mortifying. I said to him that I was upset and he says that he's sorry and he didn't want to hurt me, and I know he didn't, but I made it clear to him how personal that journal was, and he has just gone and disregarded that and read it anyway. I feel like I've lost a lot of trust in him. I have no idea what to do from here and I want advice on how to deal with this situation, especially if anyone has been in a similar situation to this before. Too long did not read. My boyfriend read my journal despite me making it clear that I didn't want him to. He says he did it to help, but I feel like I can't trust him now. Respect of privacy is huge. This needs to be addressed. Boundaries need to be respected. This would be a relationship-ending breach of trust for me. It is completely unacceptable. This is a pretty cliché and overused quote, but it's highly applicable to your situation. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Everybody knows how personal journals are. Your boyfriend knew what he was doing was wrong and his excuse is bogus. He violated your privacy and trust. I couldn't be in a relationship with someone who trampled over my boundaries, knowingly violated my privacy, and who I could no longer trust. You may feel differently. Can you still journal? Will you still feel that you can write freely, or will it always be in the back of your mind that he could read whatever you write and so you censor yourself? My journal was read when I was a teenager and my life imploded. It was several decades before I could start journaling again, and I still find myself censoring what I write. You may need to find a new therapeutic outlet if this is the case, perhaps an electronic journal with a complicated password? Just hope he never brings it up in a fight, and he will. That's why I never write stuff down. I may think lots of things, but I'm not writing them down so someone can find it. He's an ass for doing that. Does he have a history of pushing boundaries in the interest of helping? Wildly overstepping boundaries. If this dude means a lot to you, you need to re-establish them. Otherwise, move on.